Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our show today. This is the Tackle State of the Nation. And I hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. And today I'm joined by two very lovely guests. On my left, I have Otty Williams, who is a political strategist. And I have Charles Makolonde, who is a public policy expert. And welcome to the show today. It's going to be interesting. We are covering a few topics. But before I continue, I wish Ramadan Kareem to Al-Muslimin out there. And I hope that this month comes with blessings and peace. So welcome to our show. Kindly log into our socials to follow the conversation. That is New Day TV on Facebook and New Day TV on YouTube as well. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And let's have a conversation. Join in. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How was your weekend?
It was okay. Super.
I am glad that you're here, and I am also glad that you honored our invite to join the conversation today. So kindly introduce yourselves, Mr. Otty.
Thank you very much. My name is Otty William. Mm-hmm. I'm a political strategist. And first and foremost, let me take this opportunity to thank you for welcoming me to be here to discuss the state of the nation. Thank you.
All right. Charles.
Yes. I'm Charles Makolonde, and I'm a policy and governance researcher, or as you can say, public policy expert. Mm-hmm. So, I'm happy to be here.
Continue to introduce yourself, because I know you also have an organization that deals with research.
Yes. I'm the founder and the MD of COG Africa. COG is an abbreviation for Consortium of Researchers on Governance. So basically what we do is public policies on issues basically to do with governance. And mostly we started as research on county, because we realized there's a gap. When devolution happened. A lot of people didn't know what to expect from the county government, even to date, so many years after devolution. And also we do national governance policies, basically just to give breakdown information, because you realize that most of these policy documents, they are a bit intimidating to ordinary one.
In fact, even not just policy document, the word policy, when you talk to many people about, I am doing this policy, I am a public policy expert. Yeah. Just the word itself is very intimidating, because you're wondering, what is this? These are very big words. Kizungu mingi, bro. No. But it's good that you said breaking down information. Because at the end of the day, what do we want? It is for people to understand some of these things that are being talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for the simplification, and welcome again to the show. This is a very... this is a show that you don't need to be too tense. No. Hapa unaongea tu vile unaweza, but the point is you explain what we need to know, and in a way that we can understand, and also the public can understand. Thank you. You're most welcome. Now, on that same breath, let us begin with we saw the president, that is President William Ruto, make some new appointments on the ambassadors and high commissioners. And what I want to say is I am very happy for the number of women that were appointed. We have 10 ambassadors and 6 deputy ambassadors. Well, give credit where it's due. I am happy as my gender, especially in regards to, we just celebrated International Women's Day. Yes. And the president has been consistent in supporting women agenda in leadership. We even saw him make a pronouncement to say that every time someone is running, I think in the national government and even in the counties, if the man is the candidate, the woman should be a deputy. Yes. And to me, that is good news. Let's wait to see the actualization. But also, I don't think we should be asking for the bare minimum in a way that when such appointments are made, we are so happy to say, thank God, finally they've remembered us. No, not for what we deserve, surely. But Makolonde, your thoughts?
Like you said, let's give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
And I remember prior to the election, there were some charters that were signed with the youth, with the women. Mm-hmm. Initially, they were supposed to have half a cabinet. Yeah.
Wale kwa cabinet nayo tulioga.
There was half a cabinet and everything. And like you said, women make slightly around 51%
of our population, yes.
So anything less than half
is truly a disservice.
It's not something to be celebrated. But I think there's a progress being made. And we have to appreciate the small steps. But we are hoping that in future it will be almost natural.
Eventually we will get there someday. Your thoughts on the appointments, the composition, and before Otty, before I come to you, Makolonde.
Yes.
Ambassadorial posts and some of these like board appointments have always been used as a way to reward. I do not want to finish the sentence. Your thoughts?
It's like a landing spot for political failures.
Wow.
No, I can say that because I'm also a politician. And I think it's a way to recoup their campaign funds. Because if you see the kind of, there's no like a performance contract. There's no expectation from the public. There are some of those jobs you're just given, you get gazetted. And 2 years down the line, people hear about you when somebody else gets gazetted to your position. So nobody really expects anything from you.
Because some of these appointments, and Otty, I'll come to you, some of these appointments are very key. Especially when we look at trade matters and even foreign policy matters. People who are appointed to Washington, D.C., for example, people who are appointed to LA, New York, people who are appointed to China, Turkey. Some of the very strategic alliances that we need to make, I think should have some form of...
but if we were to make that expectation, then it should be across the board.
What do you mean across the board?
It should be across the board because you see, even our composition of the cabinet doesn't reflect the competencies of the respective appointees. And I even had, and it's not only on the national level, I want to be fair. Even I had the Senator of Nairobi saying that even key positions in the county are being held by people.
I saw the issue of the Department of Disaster Management.
And it's not only one department, and it's not only Nairobi. So the problem we have is we are not getting the best person for the job. We're just getting the person we know for the job. And that's a national problem. Yes.
Otty?
I think the appointment made by the president, in a way, it has showed the commitment in supporting women in leadership.
That part I don't refuse. I am very for it.
We are moving in a dispensation where women in leadership was not being recognized. And if you check the ambassadors who are appointed, you will realize that most ambassadors, they were not appointed based on their relationship with the president. But you'll realize that they tick so many boxes. For example, on the matters experience, you'll realize that most of those ambassadors, they have vast experience in matters management, leadership, and many other experiences.
Otty, I beg to challenge you on that because top of my head, Lilian Tomitomo, the one who's been sent to Zambia, is the former women rep for West Pokot. The deputy ambassador to Addis, Petronila Were, is a former nominated senator. I could go on and on.
There's Fred Ouda from the former senator.
Yes, former senator from Kisumu.
Yes.
There's Christopher Langat to Cote d'Ivoire. Is the former senator for Bomet. So we could go on and on.
I mean, those who the citizen rejected, we are sending them over there to be our representatives.
Umesema walikataliwa ground, but
walikataliwa ground, but sasa now they are the face of Kenya out there. Okay, sorry, but
guys, don't worry. This is my producer. He's called Mr. Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Anafanya kazi ya mitambo.
Sawa.
Okay, moving on from that, on issues appointments as well. there's the IEBC commissioners issue. And we saw some framework that was done by NADCO. It is in the NADCO report. Recommendations on how to go about the new appointments for IEBC. Or is it the shortlisting? In the NADCO report. Yes. So Makolonde, quickly, if you can take us through.
On the IBC, personally, I want to say that even though I support the NADCO process, I don't agree with most of the recommendations. Because
for example?
For IBC, specifically on IBC, you realize that initially there was, for you to be the chair of the commission, you had to be a lawyer. A counsel of a high court advocate or something like that. Then they expanded it to include if you are a computer scientist or something to that extent. But my academic background is mathematics. I'm a statistician. I mean, votes is about counting. So why are mathematicians and statisticians not given the opportunity to count?
Makolonde, you want to go and count the votes?
No, it's about numbers. Election is about numbers, and you're just counting. That's actually...
No, but you see, the legality part, because remember chapter 38, Article 38, of the Constitution, subsection 2 says, the Constitution provides for the right to a free, fair, and regular election based on universal suffrage. Commissioners should be neutral and stellar in their dispensation of their duties. But you see, there's a need to understand the background of law, because most of the stuff that IBC does is anchored in the Constitution. For example, a free and fair election. You know? Yes. Makolonde, I can almost see you telling me that you can just read the Constitution. But there's a need to understand, because remember in the last, I think, 3 elections now.
Yes.
Or is it 2? We've ended in the Supreme Court. You know? And what does that mean? You have to have some understanding of the law. That if we end up in the Supreme Court, this is how we are going to defend ourselves. This is what we need to do. So I think there's a need for some understanding of the Constitution. So that needs some background of the law. So Makolonde, please.
Chef. During the defense of those elections, we didn't see any commissioner.
Of course, I didn't mean the commissioners are defending. I'm talking about the chair.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. There's the commission, there's the secretariat.
Yes.
Now, within the secretariat, there are all these departments.
There's the legal
departments and everything, and the experts and everything. Now, we are talking about the commissioners. These are the people who make policies. Policies are the guidelines. Basically, these are the people who are coming up with guidelines on how elections should be done. Now, this is an exercise that involves counting. And that's my point.
It's an exercise that mostly involves trust.
If you look at what NADCO has done, because ISPAC, which is the Institute for the Accountants, because they made some recommendation, they have also been included that if you are an ISPAC member, you can actually become a chair or part of the commission. So it means that any other profession that didn't get the chance to give
submit their recommendations
now has been
locked out.
Has been locked out.
Sasa nyinyi mathematicians mulikuwa wapi? Because this was your chance to shine.
We are very few. But we are organizing.
Because Makolonde, there is no way. Yes, I know we need everyone on board. And that is why in the NADCO report, there was a recommendation to expand the commission from 7 commissioners to 9 commissioners. To involve more people. I think a multi-sectorial approach. And this is where the mathematicians you needed to have shown. and shown your leadership or interest in the process. Because I remember there's a time political parties were also making recommendations to say we need space of one of us or several of us to be in the commission. Because I mean political parties are major players, and that is where I come to you, Otty, are major players in the process, in the electoral process, because they are the custodians of these politicians. They're the ones who forward them to IEBC. So how is it that when it comes to recruitment of the commissioners, they are not consulted or involved or even appear anywhere in the process?
Well, maybe let me interject on what Makolonde said.
Yeah.
I'm also a mathematician, by the way. But
Hey, leo niko na watu wa members.
I'm an economist and a mathematician.
Okay.
But I hold to the fact that matters election is well endowed on the legal matters. So it is very important to consider someone who has a background on the legal matters.
Why? Makolonde has defended his post to say that election is a counting process. And mathematicians, as we know, can count best. So why do you think the chair of, especially the chair, or rather specifically the chair of the commission, should have a legal background?
All processes, election is a process.
It is a political process first.
It is not an event. You will realize that all processes require some background of the legal matters and the legal framework. So you will realize that if you have someone who does not have any legal experience, will make a lot of blunders. And that is why most elections in Kenya have been contested. For example...
but also, let me beg to interject. All the former commissioners we've had IEBC have a legal background. Right or wrong? From Isaac Hassan to Kivuitu to... all of them have had a legal background.
Yeah.
So we've not yet had any that doesn't have a legal background for us to compare and contrast to say, when we had the lawyers, these were the results. But now that we've tried another profession, these are the results. It's always been someone with a legal background.
Well, Towett, let me ask you a question, for example. You've said very well that in the past we've been having people with a legal background.
Yes.
So what do you think can happen if you have a chair who has no any legal background?
May I?
He has spoken like a politician, evading the question, but...
May I? Let's be very candid. Election is an imported thing. Yeah.
When you say imported, what do you mean?
It's not an African thing. Let's just say that it's imported from the US. Okay? They are the so-called paragon of democracy. Now, if you go to the US, you realize that their elections are actually not national.
They do colleges.
The Federal Electoral Commission just handles the issues to do with campaign funds and the legalities. But the real election is done on the state
level.
State level, which in our case would be the county level.
Yes.
And do you know the chief returning officer, the person handling election, is actually somebody called the secretaries of state.
Yes.
Which is actually because in the state they have the executive have the governor, the secretary of state, and the attorney general. In our case, it will be the governor, the attorney general, and the county secretary. Imagine in the states, if it was to be replicated here, the county secretary will actually be the returning officer, will be actually the person in charge of elections in every county. Now, that's part of the administrative work. It's just administrative work. So, and that's why I said I want to disagree a little bit with the NADCO report, because I don't see a reason why we need this commission. I have to be very honest. I mean...
the whole commission? Or
No. We need a secretariat. But this secretariat should be devolved to a point where this thing is something that happens 1 year. In every 5 years, as much as the process, it normally starts around December, it's ends in August, unless there are some legalities to do with, people complaining about here and there, going to court and whatnot. So it's an administrative process, election. So as long as, if we could have devolved it, if we could have devolved this commission so that we have, even if it's not at the county secretary, but we have the electoral IBC at the county level handling this election. And then it will become like country like Switzerland. They have referendum almost every month. I don't know why in Kenya we take this process. It's something that only lawyers and judges should be able to, and they keep messing us because we are, I don't know. We are
but
exalted.
Makolonde, I would like to take this a step further. If we devolve IBC,
Yes.
for example, as you're recommending,
Yes.
let us set up a scenario. We've always seen issues coming after election of trust, mistrust, misconduct, and all these are things that we've had. And our elections, I think nowadays we can almost anticipate that after every general election, there will be a Supreme Court process
Yes.
that will go on, because accusations will be thrown from both sides of the divide. So whoever will be in government then and maybe the opposition, there will be accusations flowing. So what do you think is going to happen if that is devolved to the counties, especially if we cannot trust one? Can we trust 47?
Actually,
and how do you manage that process that it is not manipulated?
Actually, it's already been, because you remember.
When you do like the arrows.
Yeah, because right now you realize that the presidential election is final at the constituency level.
Yes.
Where the arrow, the moment they announce at the constituency, it's
That's
final.
it, yeah.
So you find that even this time round, the only problem was around 20-something arrows.
Did not submit their results.
Submit.
Yeah.
But we have actually moved a step from where Kivuit was saying that I don't know where that guy is. Because previously it was only one person who can announce. So when you were saying that, I don't know where that guy
There's no way actually that we could have found you.
You have found you. So I think we have already devolved it. But now it's only about structuring. Because you find this whole idea of bombers and whatever. Election is very emotional. People invest so much. Now you have like this one person who is supposed to be...
The problem of universal suffrage is winner takes it all. In fact, my problem begins with our voting system.
Yeah.
It does not even... leave the commission out of it. My problem begins with our voting system. Because with universal suffrage, winner takes it all.
Yeah.
Winner takes it all in this country, as we have seen, is a problem, because we always have two main candidates.
Yes.
Wengine ni kama wanafanyanga tu kazi ya escort.
Yeah.
You have two main candidates and their votes, the last again 3 elections, are normally very narrow.
Yeah.
200,000 votes, 300,000 votes difference.
Yeah.
So that means these are two people who hold almost equal power, because again, Article 1 of our Constitution says what? That power belongs to the people.
Yeah.
So the people have gone to vote.
Yeah.
And the margin is so close that one side can even bring a problem to the other and even make the country stand still. Yeah. So how do we solve the problem of winner takes it all?
I'll let the political scientists take it first.
The political strategists should tell us.
Maybe, I have a different opinion from Makalonde. Comparing an election for our country with a country like US, in a way it is difficult. Because in US, they practice what is called the college system.
Yes.
And in Kenya, we have the universal suffrage, where we have to engage all citizens. And it is very difficult to compare because in the US, election is not as hotly contested as Kenya.
But I think now it is, because if you've been following the happenings in the last 1 year, even just... of course, Democrats and Republicans, but even just within the Republican Party, there's been...
I mean, not even now. I don't think there's an election that has always been more contested than the 92. George Bush Sr. And Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Then there was also the George Bush Jr.
Yes.
Where it even ended up with in court with Al Gore.
Yeah.
Then there was the Obama. Then there was
the Obama
Clinton. Then there's the Trump, and now the Trump is
and running. Biden. Yeah. And even Trump just within the Republican Party.
And now imagine if like the last election where Trump lost. And even caused chaos.
January 6th.
Thought it was, insurrection. People thought it's only an African thing. Imagine if there was a Chebukati, a one person. What do you think would have happened?
The challenge is being thrown to you.
So devolving it reduces that risk. It means that if Migori has said this, Marakwet has said this, Mumbai, there are several people saying this, and now the process looks a bit fair because now you have 47 people announcing results for their respective counties. You don't have to keep Chebukati must go, Isaac must go, Kivuitu must
every
go.
Election cycle.
Yeah, you can't chant for 7 names. I mean, they can't all be unfair to you.
Makalonde, in Kenya right now, we can say election is devolved. because you will realize that the once election is announced at the polling station, it is final, and it happens across the polling stations. From there, the result is then submitted to the sub-county, moving to the county, then to the national tally. So we can say election is devolved. Every operation is taking place at the polling station level. At the national level, they are only to declare and sum up from the counties.
But where does the issue come from, Otty? Because what we cannot deny is that we have also seen discrepancies in terms of what is announced at the polling station, what the RO has as the tally, and what finally comes to the National Tallying Center. Because part of what informs some of the issues that are taken to court is those discrepancies. Because there is no way kwa ile polling station yangu, pale kwetu Kiminda Primary School, it was announced that the president, or rather the candidate X had X votes, candidate Y had Y votes, and then when it gets to the national level, it doesn't match. So I don't, the other issue with that we have in this country, I think is just a trust issue. And this begins, like we said, IBC and the election is a whole political process. This begins from the politicians themselves. You understand? But also the commissioners have not done any better in ensuring there's public trust.
I agree on the issue of trust. And if we go a step back, we ask, why do we have this mistrust? It's because, let's be very honest, Kenya is a colonial construct of ethnic nations which were forced together under this territory.
Makolodo, what are you saying? We didn't love each other.
No. We are just allegiance to the flag and whatever. But actually, we are forced together, which means that because of that, we normally feel we are closer to decision making. We agree with things when they are made with people like us. And like us, the gender identity, maybe a woman, if you're a woman, if of a certain tribe X, and that's why, for me, I think eventually, not now, already an article report has been made, commissions will be selected, and then there will be, of course, the parliament will just pass the name and whatever.
What do you mean, of course?
I mean, even the ambassadors list are supposed to be vetted in parliament, but we know what that means. I mean, it's going to pass. It's done. It's a done deal. But going back to this, you realize that one of the reasons why you have the trust deficit is because we are not seeing, like, commission is like 7. Even if it increases to 9, you can increase to 40-something tribes so that every tribe can see their member. And that's the problem.
Or every demographic is represented.
The problem is people don't trust each other in this country for various reasons. And that's why one of the way of sorting it, the way we sorted the presidency issues, when somebody could look at the president and then every county, which is also, most of it are very ethnic, now they can see their governors. If they complain too much to the national governor, hey, no, you have
deal
a governor
with your governor.
So you can actually have somebody else that, So if election were also the same, and we have these, the presidential returning officers at the county level, and there's no extra thing that is needed because the governor, the women rep, and the senate are announced at the county level.
Yes.
So all that we need to do is change a few statutes and make sure that the RO, the county RO, announces the final presidential, so that we don't have bombers. Because they're already announcing.
Okay.
They're already announcing.
It's like replicating of duties as well.
Yeah. So if the RO for who is announcing, the governor of Kisumu also announces the final presidential, also the Mombasa, Turkana, and all these counties, then we can just be sitting there. And that's why I think the chair should actually have been a mathematician. All you need is have a pen and paper. And a pen and paper. And just add the Kisumu. Yeah, and that's it. So nobody comes to you and says, oh, there were some results, Judini, bombers, what transmission, what. Because if there's a problem, and this is there's something that normally happens when somebody complains about presidential election. There's a question which is normally put to them that why is your MPs, your MCAs, your governors, your senators not resigning because they went through the same processes? But you realize that if you had empowered that RO who announces the governor, the senator, and the women rep. To also announce the final presidential election for that county, it will be very hard for the presidential election to come disputing, because the governor elected there will be like, I was there. I was there.
Yeah.
The senator, I was there. The women rep, I was there.
What are your thoughts?
On matters mistrust, what has been bringing mistrust is you will realize that election is like a football, where you have to involve, IBC is like a referee, where you have to involve both the players.
But if the referee is compromised, what happens?
It's not a matter of being compromised. The problem has been coming where you don't involve all the players in the decision making, where they come up with the IBC. And that is what the NADCO report is trying to address. You will realize that moving forward, we'll be involving all the players, all the stakeholders. And from there, issues to do with mistrust and sijui mara nani ameiba will no longer be there.
You have both not answered my question. So how do we deal with the universal suffrage issue? Because when we have very close margins in terms of winner and loser, na unajua time immemorial, number 2.
Of course.
Anyone who comes number 2, it means you didn't win. But put it back to, when we put it in context, you're not just number 2 who lost because you had 1 vote. You are number 2 and you lost because you have the margin is very small.
You almost have.
And as you have seen, it can also almost bring the country to a standstill.
Yeah, sure.
On several election cycles, we have seen it happen. Unfortunately, at some point, we even had the post-election violence after the 2007 elections. And that is not something that anyone would want a repeat of. Any Kenyan would not want to see that. So how do we cure? Is it now and now it is good that both of you are politicians, do we need to create the official office of opposition, because it was part of the 4 recommendations? The memo that was sent to Parliament by the president when he first got in. I think it is among the things he did in his first 100 days. The memo that talked about the 2/3 gender of official opposition. There was the entrenching into the constitution. I think it was
Prime Minister.
The NGC, what is it called? CDF.
The CDF.
Yes. So, do you think having an official opposition, and allow me to land, because you have mentioned it in your conversations, if we create office of opposition, will it cure this issue of universal suffrage, winner takes it all? And in the same breath, will it also empower Parliament to now come back to do part of the functions that it's supposed to do properly, which is oversight? Time and again, in the last maybe year or less, there's been the issue of Parliament has become a rubber stamp. And Makolonde, you've alluded to it, that in this new list of the ambassadors, it means it ended to Parliament na itapita. But as we know, Parliament needs to do oversight. So do we need to empower for a strong official opposition? As we know, the job of opposition is what? To keep government in check. So that, remember, in all this, it is the mwananchi, or me and you, that will be benefiting. Because if we have an unchecked executive, then that becomes a problem and a burden to the citizens.
I believe the position of official opposition leader is very important. And I think NADCO report has cited that in one of their recommendations. Because once we have an office of the official opposition leader, which is recognized by the constitution, you will realize that they will have a budget. So putting government on check will be so easy. Because, for example, right now, you will realize that opposition is not entrenched in the constitution. They don't have budget. They just do some roadshow.
Yani maandamano ya watu ndio unaita roadshow.
Some roadshow in the name of putting government on check. So entrenching it in a constitution is very important, and I think it will help us moving forward to put government on check.
You know, the recommendation in NADCO is not a new thing. Let's just be very honest. You know.
Which recommendation specifically?
This is just an extract of BBI. If you are to be very
I know you are a big proponent.
Yeah, it's because, you know, one of the reasons why you have the mistrust is because of the hypocrisy of our politics. Yeah. The PM is not a new thing. We had it in 2007 to 2013.
With the Kibaki government.
Yeah, with the Kibaki government. So the whole thing is we need to devolve power. And personally, I'm very passionate about devolving all kind of power. When power rests on one person,
there's the risk of
any institution, even the presidency, it creates a bit of a problem. And I agree with you. The number two, yes, we have, and in mathematics, in game theory.
Today I will be schooled. You said
Politics falls
Let me write the notes.
In mathematics, politics falls under game theory, something called zero-sum game.
Yes.
And in any zero-sum game, there's no number two. You either win or lose. You lose.
Yeah.
And basically, the reason why it's zero-sum is, apart from number one, from number 2 to number 100, they are all zero. You get nothing. It doesn't matter whether you're number 2 or number 99. You all get nothing. Now, and because of the nature of our politics and because we have all these interest, and number 2 in Kenya, and not only in Kenya, even in some of these other countries, have almost half the country because the margin is so small, like you said. So having an office of the leader of opposition will actually help because people can they can still articulate whatever policies that and manifesto that they had, they can keep the government in check. And having the office of a real prime minister, not, and no offense to the current, but I mean, okay, give the guy some powers. I mean, we're in a situation where, like I said, where we have a prime cabinet secretary, we already have it. Who also happened to be in charge of the first topic we had,
which is foreign affairs, yes.
But there's no that thing. As in, it's lacking because
you're not feeling.
Yeah, you're not feeling like there's somebody else who has some sort of power that that office has. So if NADCO can recommend a real and yes, I know again. Hatutatengeneza vyeo and the rest, but now I hope those vyeo that are now being created will be given real powers.
Okay.
Yes.
You know what has been bringing a lot of contention on matters election is about the matter of the winner take it all, and that is what the NADCO report is trying to cure, because in a situation where immediately after election, once you lose, you don't have any office.
I sorry to cut you, Otty. I don't think it's about the office per se. And it is about, and this again you guys have alluded to, the election process in this country is very emotive.
Yeah, sure.
That is one. Yeah. And two, election in this country also comes with power. And apart from the power, our elections are still very tribal.
Yeah.
And so we have these tribal demigods that we front to the positions of power. And what that means is when a community fronts a candidate or candidates, given that they run as a pair, president and deputy, the running mate, is we are banking on the proceeds or the goodies that come with being in power. And so any community that is not part of the presidency feels like they will be left out even on issues of development, because we've seen it play out in some of the conversations, even with our politicians, to say we have suffered all along because of the presidency we did not have. You understand? So part of what forms the bitterness or the emotions is that we know for the next 5 years this is going to cost us in our community. You understand? But if we had the kind of political parties and by extension candidates that are based on ideology, so it doesn't mean, it doesn't matter who comes in.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because if I come in regardless of the party that I was elected on or the ticket, I will serve Kenyans, because it will be based on my ideologies, what was in my manifesto. But when you have power, I mean, we saw it in the KRA recruitment process that was halted, that such a huge amount of recruitees coming from only 2 communities becomes a problem, because it means in the next election, itabidi tujipange with the people of the other community to say, nyinyi muliona ilituramba. So can you do the formation very fast?
Yes.
We need to get that power. You understand? So I don't think it's the issue of support or whatever. It is the issue of after the win, after the election, what comes with it. You know?
I don't think the issue has been about the fear of a community that where will we be placed as a community. Because, for example, this government, you will realize that the government has been trying to serve all the communities that even they did not support them. And
Makolonde, calm down.
That is where you've been seeing president moving around the country to launch so many projects. For example, in Nyanza, Nyanza was perceived to be the stronghold for the former prime minister. But you will see the president moving around launching a lot of projects. But
I'm glad he's using the word launching.
Launching a lot of projects. So many projects are moving on. So the issue has not been about fear. The issue has been where will be placed. So the most important thing is to come up with the office of the official opposition leader, where the opposition leader will have funds maybe to run all the activities, to put government on check, and also to maybe to cater for those who supported.
In what way? But Makolonde come in.
Okay, you know, Chep, okay, let's be real for a minute.
Yes.
And
we are here to have a real conversation. That's why it's called the tackle. We tackle real issues.
Yes, and I'm actually glad. Okay, let's tackle this issue. The leader of opposition will not cure anything. It will cure the ego of the person who loses.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it does. I mean, it's not a new thing. We had it until 2013.
Yes.
Yeah, and does it mean pre-2013?
We even used to have a shadow cabinet.
Kibaki used to run one of the best shadow cabinets. Did it mean that the people in opposition are benefiting? No, they were not. You know, the problem we have is, and let's trace it back to 1965, the session paper number 10.
Yes.
Is where now drafted by the Kibaki and Tom Mboya at the behest of President Kenyatta. And you realize what they did was they recommended that the government can only, with the few resources, you know, resources are always limited. It will be best if it's invested in areas with high returns. And according to their thinking, they invested in along the railways. Yeah, where already there was transport, there was road networks, and according to their wisdom at that time, they also somehow, where the president was coming from, happened to be one of the areas that was considered to have high returns. And that's why you realize that in some areas, there's no new thing being found.
Oh, that's why you talked about the launch.
Yeah, but you find that almost 60 years, almost 50, 60 years after
independence,
we are realizing Turkana has oil. I mean, it means that whatever was recommended, whatever was being done,
they were not part of the plan.
There was not part of the plan. And the government didn't invest in Turkana at that time, not because it didn't have the potential. They didn't care because nobody from Turkana was in the room. In the room. So that's why eventually, after devolution, is that where now we have a governor from Turkana.
So they're able to speak up about the issues.
And say, actually, you know what? We have the water aquifers, we have this, and we have this. So even if we create all these positions, as long as the presidency has so much power consolidated in one office, we'll still have violence. We'll still have contentious elections. And because people will still want to get into power so that they can share the cake.
Because the other thing in this country is we have over-legislated issues.
Yeah.
You understand? Because, for example, your office here, Prime Cabinet Secretary, was not there in the previous government.
It wasn't.
But it has been created. But like you're saying, for what?
Yeah.
We are not feeling.
The office, you will realize that what Makolonde is trying to say is to decentralize like power. Like to remove it from one central place.
But that was the point of devolution when we promulgated the new constitution, was to devolve power.
So you see,
Which we have.
bringing all this position is to decentralize power. For example, if you have the office of the official opposition leader, the president will not have the
Monopoly in parliament.
monopoly of bulldozing everything. So the office also of the cabinet prime secretary is a way of decentralize power. So you'll realize that power is not
sorry
held
if I may cut in. How will having the office of the opposition not prevent the president from doing whatever he wants?
At least the office of the opposition will have full mandate to put the government on check.
You know, this thing is not theoretical. We already had it.
Then let me ask you a question.
Yes.
You know, we are talking about something that we've had before.
Yeah.
If you compare this government and the previous government we've had, which one is working better? You'll realize that maybe the previous government was working out better because we had a powerful office which was putting them on check.
Okay, so in short, you are trying to say that in the 1990s, the president couldn't do whatever he wanted because there was a leader of opposition.
Yeah.
No. If you go down into history, that's one of the worst periods in this country. I mean, let's be very honest.
But it was not. Maybe you are talking on the time when we had one multi-party.
No, the 1990s.
92 was after the multi-party democracy.
Yes, so 1990s we actually had, and it was Matiba 92 to 97.
Yes.
And those were firebrand politicians. Those
Akina
were
Orengo.
firebrand, the Orengos.
Yeah.
Then from 97 you had Kibaki. Yeah, you see, then from 2002 we had the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah, sure.
So this thing has always been there. The problem is, as long as power is consolidated, and real power, opposition, there is no power in opposition.
So Makolonde,
those are just
my issue with that is, or rather my thoughts are, for me, the office of the opposition, I want it more for parliament purposes.
Yeah.
Because we have seen things go to parliament, and we have seen rhetorical statements being pronounced to say that if this doesn't happen, then these are the consequences. You understand? But remember, another function of parliament is representation. We have sent these people there to go and represent us and our views, because almost 50 million of us cannot all sit in parliament. True. And so if we are not protected by the people, or cannot be protected by the people that we have sent to represent us, then there's a danger in how things are being done. So my issue is more on the things that come to the floor of the House.
Yeah.
Should be able, like both sides should be able to speak to it. And a matter, if it is right, it is right. If it is wrong, it is wrong. But not parliamentarians on both houses being twisted to say that you have to do this, you have to do this. And that is the reason I think most MPs after election will want to cross the floor to the side of government, because for your survival, sometimes might mean that you support government. And this is where I also falter some of the stakeholders in the political process, like ORPP, and that same IBC and even PPDT, Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, because Makolonde, when I vie on Makolonde party,
yes,
I should never cross to OT party.
True. Yeah.
And if I do, to support their ideologies,
then you lose the seat.
I resign. You understand? Yeah. So for me, the official opposition, I want it because I want us to be protected. And our views to be, to be catered for.
And I agree. And just to answer your question in two parts. One, on the issue of the leader of opposition, and the only way you can make that office powerful or strong is if you give the prime CS of the prime minister, whatever name, also powers. But if the power still resides at State House, then it doesn't matter what happens in parliament because they still receive calls. But if we have a real prime minister who is actually the head of government, and that was the original discussion. That was the
even in the BBI, that was the discussion.
that was the original discussion. If we have a head of government coming to parliament on Thursday, answering questions, and being checked by a leader opposition who was number 2, now that one you have a real house. You see? But if you have a situation where you just change the name of the leader of majority and the leader of minority to be the PM, and then nothing changes. As long as the issue in this country is we are still young, a young democracy, but we have somehow given power to the person at the tip. And not only on issues to do with I don't want to be unfair to the presidency, but you see IBC, we see all these institutions, ultimate power rests on the person at the top.
At the top.
And that's the problem with these institutions. Because you find a situation where that one person
decides your fate.
And that the decision may not be based on the best interest of the country. Maybe it's tribal or maybe, So as long as, if we can find a way as a country, and personally this is something I'm very passionate about, to devolve as much as possible. Devolve the powers within these institutions. I think that will cure a lot of these problems.
Otty, you are over different.
You know Makalonde, yes. However much you are holding to an opinion that we have a central power which rested with the president, you have other institutions which are independent. For example, judiciary, the legislature, they should be independent. So I don't think if the president has the power to manipulate any decision made at other institutions.
You see,
how independent are our independent institutions?
I wanted to ask him, which institution is he calling independent? I just wanted him to...
Is it judiciary?
For example, judiciary is independent.
And IBC.
IBC even have the word independent.
In the what?
In the name.
So, and these are some of the apparatus that helps government to help the president run the nini and to put the government on check.
I think, so, yes.
However much you hold to that opinion, we have the other institutions. So maybe we can say that maybe other institutions are not executing their duties so well. But we cannot say that we have a system of government where power only rests with the president. The president does not have say over everything.
He actually does. The only independent institution we have in this country is IPOA. Yeah, that oversight.
They are for the police.
That one, give them their due. They are independent. But for the rest, they are independent in paper.
Okay, switching up gears.
Yes.
There's the issue of illicit brew that we have seen has become a menace in this country, and not just recently. It's been going on, but I think it behaves like a wave. Yeah. Sometimes it comes, then it goes down, then it comes again. But we saw people die in Kirinyaga. And there's the new regulations that are being recommended from the Office of the Interior Ministry. Sorry, from the Ministry of Interior and Government Coordination, National Government Coordination. So, I don't know, because again, my problem has always been with some of these issues is that we are very reactive. We are not proactive. Because we should not wait for something to happen for us to say, oh, apana, this is what we need to do. We need to change this. We need to change this. You understand? The policies or whatever law that is anchored in the Constitution should be implemented. Because, again, over legislation, we have, in my opinion, among one of the best constitutions that anyone could ask for, any country could have. But we draw the line at implementation. And the offices that need to enforce, I don't think are doing the best job. Makolonde.
On issues of illicit brew, that's a symptom. Yeah, drinking is not the problem. It's a symptom of the problem.
And the problem is what?
is the same one that we started fighting when Jomo Kenyatta, President Jomo
Alisema
Kenyatta,
nini?
alisema
Umaskini,
shida ni umaskini, maradhi na ujinga.
How many years later?
Years later, we are still fighting. Alcoholism is a disease. It's the moment you become alcoholic, you're almost, you see, a substance abuse.
Yeah.
It's because of poverty. And also to some extent ujinga. Yeah, you see. But if we look at data, you realize that the alcohol industry, apart from the energy sector, it actually runs this
country. Yeah,
So
it's one of the biggest revenue earners for this country.
Because you realize from data from NACADA, the so-called, I don't want to name names of companies, but they who control the market, sold almost 74 billion worth of alcohol. And that's like a third that's the official figures. But then we have all these other plus the illegal, which means this is like a 200 billion industry. Now, it said, and again I quote NACADA, that 1 in 8 between Kenyans between the age of 15 and 65, 1 in 8 drinks. That's like 3 to 4 million people drinking. And most of them drinks 3-4 times a week. So why is the problem only in a few counties? So I think that's one of the questions. And for me, I'll answer it in 2 ways. One, what they are doing, in my estimation, is not really fighting alcohol. They are fighting untaxed alcohol. Yeah, for them it's about the tax. It's about bringing those guys to the tax bracket. And instead of doing it like President Kibaki did, what he did was the keg and now this. The cheap one now taxed. Because people who drink mostly will still drink, one or the other.
That's true.
So, but at least get them something clean. But what is happening right now is more of bringing them to the drinkers bracket. To the tax bracket. Secondly, some of these things happen because of the expectations.
What do you mean expectations?
Expectation is, like we said, if you elect a government in place, you have expectation of
that government.
But the reality is, one of the other, you are all a bit, So when this happens, and mostly you find it's the youth, the young adults, because they thought, okay, now this our guy will save us from all this. Nothing is happening. So what do? They go back to drinking. Where they are. So how will you help with all these police and all these and what happens if these youths still don't have jobs? So what? They'll wake up and do what? And
wait for that time of the new regulation. So they said, I think from 5 p.m. to 11. So they will sit and wait for 5 p.m.
So they just hang around and wait for 5 p.m.
Because like you said, if it is drinking and we are curing a symptom and not the disease, it means I will also do whatever it takes to get that bottle.
Yeah.
I have always been of the opinion that easy changa, nyadala and what have you should be legalized.
Yeah, true.
You understand? Because yes, we know alcoholism is a disease and it's a problem. But also we do not want to lose lives in the process. And so when you set these new regulations and you've not cured the disease like you say, it means you've left open for now this contraband, counterfeit and what have you. Because if I cannot get ile quota yangu pale kwa wines and spirits at a given time, it means najua pale nyuma kwa ex breweries yake ile anajitengenezea nitapata, which is not controlled. Contraband, counterfeit, risk losing lives. So let us legalize hii ya bei kidogo as we try to cure the disease.
I don't think it is wrong to say that the government is trying to target the untaxed alcohol, because you will realize the government is doing a right thing.
Thing by doing what? Please explain what the government is doing.
The only way to curb the menace of alcoholism in this country is to come up with the stringent measures, the firm measures to scare people from taking alcohol.
Scare them. Remember, you're dealing with adults. Otty, you are not dealing with children. And I want to... Let me structure this question like this. We have agreed that alcoholism is a disease. We have agreed that, okay, that is where you disagree with me, but before someone becomes an alcoholic or they are diagnosed with that, some things have happened in the background. You just don't wake up today and tomorrow you're declared an alcoholic. You understand? The issue of poverty, by and large in this country, is still a big issue. Unemployment, inflation, all these other things we can mention. And the income is not changing. The opportunities are the space is getting smaller and smaller. Why I was drinking in the first place is because I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling all these things. You understand? And as years go by, things are not changing. No. If anything, they're changing. They are changing, but for the worse. And so I am sinking deeper into the issue. So when you say it is not, okay, yes, it might not be a matter of tax bracket, but also you cannot scare me back into me being...
So it's also a matter of tax bracket.
You understand? Not, okay, let me finish. Allow me to land.
Okay.
So you cannot scare me back to say, wewe Chep ukikunywa, nitakushika sijui nitakufanya nini. Okay, I will think about it. Ati amesema akinishika what happens? You understand? Yeah. So what do? I retreat to now kwenda kukunywa huko nyuma mali. Sitashikwa, sitaonekana. Na hamutajua. Is my assumption. No. What is the danger in that? That I will drink anything. Unaelewa? So, you cannot come to say, hakuna vile mtoto kwako Otty. I don't know if you have kids. Amekuwa akifanya hizi makosa zote. Unampiga. Growing up, what did we see? The more ulikuwa unapigwa, the more una rebel. Si ni ukweli? So, were you scaring me back straight? Or were you just covering the issues?
But you see, what the government is also trying to do is to minimize access. That is why the government is trying to come up with a lot of bureaucratic process, maybe to start alcoholic stores. The only way to limit people from accessing all this alcohol is to come up with those firm measures. And you'll see so many counties have come up with maybe some resolution to shut down all the stores within so many streets. And that is one of the best things which I think government is doing. So we cannot say that whatever government is doing...
Otty, I'm still not satisfied with your answer because sikatai, you are shutting down and minimizing access. But you are forgetting those are the mainstream access.
Yeah.
Or access points that you're minimizing. An example is the wines and spirits and bars. But there's a big whole industry that we know, the counterfeit industry and the contraband industry that exists in this country. And some of this alcohol that kills people is not the mainstream alcohol that is being sold. Ni hii yenye inauzwa na mtu mwenye amejitengenezea yake. Unanielewa? Yeah. And so, hata ukifunga wines, I know of someone and I know of them and where they manufacture and where they sell. You get me? So kama wines imefungwa, that person has maybe paid off the local cops, the local administrative, kama ni chief, nyumba 10 nini. The operation is still ongoing. Unanielewa?
Yeah.
So I will go there. Kwa sababu kumbuka hii pombe inawanga watu wengi Otty. Si ati ni ile pombe inauzwa kwa bar.
Yeah, sure. And you see,
kama hujakiwa, this is my problem I have. And I feel like we should open things like rehabs. Unaelewa? And even have programs kama hizi za Maju, Alcoholics Anonymous. Unaelewa? So that we start dealing with the substance abuse issue. We deal with it wholesomely and not reactively.
But, Chep, sorry to interject, is... I'm not saying only poor people drink.
Yeah.
We also know some more well-off people who are alcoholics. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. Alcohol is mostly a result of idleness, especially if you have something to do.
You have no time to go
yeah,
there.
let's say if you were to come here in the morning, you can't wake up and start drinking.
No.
Because you need to be sober, do this, do another thing. When you are done, you start drinking. But here's a situation where a youth wakes up, because most of them are youths. A youth wakes up, he's in parents' compound. Of course, the parent will be like, now you are past school, go do something, and kibarua. Because he's not employed. He has nowhere to go, so he wakes up around 9.
hang around.
But because the mother always, the parents always don't want an adult to sit around, so he'll go to a center somewhere or meet fellow youths who are also unemployed, what they call base. And what will they do the whole day? They'll just be talking and what. And because to forget about all these problems, they'll start drinking. And for me, this is an unemployment issue, because alcohol is not only being drank in central Kenya. It's also, actually, Chang'aa, the most potent Chang'aa is in Nyanza and Western. But you realize that in some of these areas, because of the availability of land, you find that youths, when they wake up, there's something to do in the morning. Utaenda shamba, utafanya nini. By the time you are free to now start drinking, almost past.
Hata ushachoka.
It's almost past lunch, and utapata, because umefanya kazi asubuhi, you will have to eat something before you go drink, which means at least this alcohol is not affecting you as much.
The same way too.
Yeah, it's affecting somebody mwenye ameamuka, the 50 he has, wanachanga, alafu kanudhu. Because like you said, the moment you close the official channels,
you open route for the back
what
channels.
will they do? Do you think they'll just hang around in some center waiting for 5 p.m.?
Of course not.
And actually, some of the same people who are closing these, the same police, the same administrative officers, are the same people who will be paid to allow some back access. And now I've seen in areas where people actually, pombe sa inawekwa kwa chupa ya soda. Then kuna venye, ukipeana signal, we soda yako ni 50, but soda yao ni 200. So unashindwa soda ya 200 ni gani? So I think the real problem, and I agree, yes, we have to cure the symptoms, and the government has to do whatever it has to do to make sure that the access is limited, but that's not the real problem. The root is these youths are disenfranchised. They don't have anything to do in the morning, so they'll end up drinking.
It is true that I understand the rate of unemployment within young people is really skyrocketing. But once the government, the government is not only targeting the already established Chang'aa and the wine and spirit stores. It's also targeting, especially they put a lot of emphasis on the Chang'aa that are being sold at the back street. And we cannot say that unemployment, we cannot say that only unemployment, like the unemployed youths, they only go for Chang'aa because they don't have anything to do. Once we cut all the backstreet Chang'aas, you'll realize from there, because it is also good that the government is also trying to put in place so many strategies to ensure that the youth, at least they have something to do. And this is a process, not something that the government...
which strategies are they putting to make sure youth have something to do?
For example, something like affordable housing. So many youths have got a job and they are trying to work in those
Okay,
sites.
let me ask you. And I've been asking my guests, why was affordable housing created?
Affordable housing was created. One was to create employment. Two, there is a pressure of land use, especially if I'll give you example of Kisii. You will realize that so many Kisii, the population is really skyrocketing so high, to an extent that the available land cannot serve the population there. So people have been cutting that lands into plots. So you'll realize that the lands we had for agriculture, they are no longer there. To address that, the government saw it fit to come up with the affordable housing so that we can leave other lands. Instead of cutting those lands to be used, they can leave those lands for agriculture. That was one reason. The second reason was unemployment, to address unemployment. Because affordable housing has like three parts. We have the construction part, we have the management part, and we have the the maintenance part. All these three parts create employment. For example, in the construction, we have people working in the site. In the management, we have those people working in the site, and also in the maintenance. And that is why the government saw it fit to come up with affordable housing.
I know we have digressed, but Makolondo, you have the right to comment.
No, it's okay. It's a conversation.
Yes.
We can't. I agree that affordable housing is a good plan, poorly implemented on two fronts. Okay, nobody can consciously say that Kenyans don't need good houses. I mean, that's like a basic.
Unless you want to do it for Kenyans.
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs a good house. But the part that doesn't make sense is you tax to construct these houses, then you sell them. It's like you paying for that phone, then when I deliver it, you pay it again. But you are paying me in installment. Then when you are able to afford it, now when I tell you now coming to get your phone, now you pay me again. So
you scrap everything that I have done.
That is
the subsidized prices.
That is a bit. Okay, that's a bit. But the most important thing, and I agree with the idea of creating jobs, but affordable housing is a poorly implemented New Deal. Now, in early 90s, FDR, the US president
Fitzgerald,
took over when Roosevelt, when he realized that he took over when after around World War I, the country was poor, people didn't have a job, population was skyrocketing, and now one way of doing that is the government spends so much so that people can get a job. You give people a job by government spending. Actually, government is the biggest employer. So what he did, he decided to build roads, bridges, houses, basically get people
anything
into
he could do.
Yeah, he was just getting people into employment so that they can do this. And that's what I believe the president is trying to do. But now here is the difference, is that he wasn't taxing people. The government was actually allocating a budget, was spending a budget to do this. You see, get people into this employment. And I believe deep down, what this so-called creating employment is a way of kazi kwa vijana. It's not a new thing, because every government wants youths engaged. Kibaki had the kazi
kwa vijana.
Yeah, then Uhuru had the kazi mtaani, because every government needs youths to be engaged.
So,
and this is the first time in almost 20 years that we have a situation where youths are just idle. No government wants youth idle. You want them engaged into something. So I agree that affordable housing, if it was to be implemented the way it's supposed to do, then it's okay. But if we look at the statistics, and I'm glad you're saying that you are a mathematician.
He's an economist.
Economist and also a mathematician. Is if you look the kind of youths Kibaki got into the kazi
kwa vijana,
the kind of youths Uhuru got into kazi mtaani, can you compare to the youths that are in affordable housing? These are mjengos. There are a few here and there. And actually, how many counties are implementing it? Apart from Homa Bay, I think there are like 5 only so far, because there are some contentions about the land and whatever.
You know, the issue to do with the taxes. You know, the reason why the government is trying to come up with taxes. As a country, we want to stand for ourselves. We don't want to start borrowing here and there. That is why...
Otty, we have digressed, and I know that one is going to... The issue of borrowing...
just to tackle him on that.
Okay,
just a minute. That is why the government is taxing people. And also, you will realize that these houses, they are being sold at subsidized prices. You see? So to make maybe any Kenyan who is willing can afford, you can make your first deposit, then you do your monthly payment.
Makolonde, on the issue of, is it borrowing?
Yes. Borrowing. If America, Japan, all these so-called first world countries have like debts, almost double,
in fact, America's debt,
double, triple their GDP, there's this small country in Africa all of a sudden wants to be self-sufficient.
You know.
Will it ever happen? I mean, let's be very realistic. I'll rather, what will you prefer out of these two situations? You owe people 2 million, but you're living a good life, kids are going to school, and you find a way of repaying them and taking the money. Your assets are like 1 million, but you owe people like 2 million, but for the duration of all your life, you have been able to live in a good house, take your kids to good schools, get them opportunities, and basically enjoy life. Or you don't owe anybody anything, but you can barely afford lunch.
You see.
I mean, these first world countries, they they take a lot of debts. And they're living the good life. Because all you have to do is manage the debt.
Now, Makolonde, for me, the question would be, what happens when they default on the debt? Because our issue, I think, was on the defaulting of the debt.
Our issue was...
Because the first world countries, as we know, hata wakidefault na debt ya wenyewe, they will not be treated the same way we will be treated.
Our issue is we let the IMF design our... And this is the problem. Okay, Ghana recently said it can't pay. What has happened to Ghana? I mean, these are just fears. They're like those. They're scarecrows. What happens is, if you can't pay, you can't pay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You just say, okay, guys, this is what I took. We owe you like 10 trillion.
Even with the bank, when you have a loan, what do? You go back to renegotiate.
Yeah, you say, yes, I owe you 10 trillion. But what we'll do is this. I can't afford to pay you 10 trillion. So what I'll do, because I still need money so that I can invest into the people, so that they can begin employed, so that we can increase our GDP, so that we can get this money and pay you guys. So I'll need time. Let's renegotiate. I can't be paying you guys around what you're demanding. So let's, and government is like a business, an ongoing entity. This thing is not ending. We are not like finishing the loan so that it goes anywhere. Where is Kenya heading? We are going nowhere. We are just here. So one of the problems that we have is this idea that has been sold that, and you find the problem. The problem that we really have is, if we were overtaxing people and not borrowing, that would be okay. You see? If we were borrowing and not taxing people, that would also be okay. Because for President Uhuru, no, let me just put my point. What Uhuru did, what Kibaki did was, he experimented that with Kibaki. Kibaki expanded the tax bracket, then minimized the borrowing. He found it's like 200 billion, left at like $500 million. You see? So he taxed people, didn't borrow too much. What Uhuru did, he overborrowed, but he put subsidies, which means he never overtaxed people.
Yes.
So at least one side is gaining. The problem we have right now is the current administration is overtaxing people and overborrowing.
No. Let me tell you, Makalonde. What the president is trying to do.
No, not trying to do. I'm saying what he's doing.
One is to expand.
Finish your statement, then you can.
No. I think this should be a conversation in such a way that when he came in, where was the debt level? And right now, it has increased by almost 3 trillion. True or false? When he came in, the taxes, they have increased. True or false?
True.
So the debt has increased. The taxes has increased. Where is this money going?
You can now come in.
You see, what the president is trying to do is, one is to expand tax base. Then on the issue of subsidies, you know what the President Uhuru was doing? Uhuru was busy subsidizing consumption. President Ruto saw it fit that the only way to go is to subsidize production. That is why you see President is coming up with the things to do with the subsidized fertilizer and the rest. So with subsidizing production, you encourage so many people to produce. Once they produce, they produce sufficient.
Do we have the results?
Sorry?
Do we have real data? Because I was going through Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data for February and a comparative analysis between 2022 February, 2023 and 2024 February. Do you know what has changed? Actually, almost everything has inflated the value. except tomatoes and maize. Tomatoes are reduced by 0.7.
Does that go to say, have you just informed this point to say that production has been subsidized, and that's why we have maize cheaper and tomatoes cheaper?
I agree.
Because the president is big on agriculture.
I agree. But, Chep, we can't be eating maize in the night. And we can't be paying rent with maize and everything. Maize. I mean, we can't use maize for lights.
You can.
You realize that electricity. Let me say it like this. You need like 10 things. In the right? You need maize. Sugar has increased by almost 40%. Steamer, the tokens, has increased by more than 45%. Fuel has increased.
Because that also informs
Gas
the cost of manufacturing and cost of production.
You realize that of the 10 things that you need, one has reduced by around 10%, one by 0.7%. The rest have increased by more than 40%. So if you are spending 2,000, now you are spending like 3,000. Yes, maize is cheaper, but everything else is expensive. So to an ordinary person, yes, I agree. We need to be food secure, and anything that goes into that, I fully support. But this maize that we say that subsidizing production, still is depending on rain, which means if it doesn't rain, it's still, there's no like Galana, there's no something that the government can say, we're investing into this, so that in case of anything happening, we're still depending on the same weather patterns.
No, Makalonde. The government is coming up with a lot of projects, especially establishing dams.
Which ones?
Establishing dams, and let me just finish. Establishing dams and canal. For example, let me give you one example. In Siaya County, there is this project called the Low and Zaire irrigation. The government has put a lot of money in that project to ensure that in that region, whether it rains or not, they must produce that. They must produce. They must do production. Another thing is the subsidies of fertilizer. Once we've subsidized fertilizer, then we've come up with the projects like the establishing of dam. We'll never depend on rain. So the food is sufficient. And Makio, we don't produce to eat. We produce to sell.
Are we exporting?
So it is. Yes, we are exporting.
We are not exporting any food.
Let me tell you.
We are actually importers.
We had a challenge of bridging the gap between after production where next, and we will see the government has come up with a lot of projects to build so many markets. It is really helping to bridge the gap of bridging the gap between the market and the producers.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. Here's a situation that the basic needs. It's not only maize. Even food is not only maize. I agree what they are doing on maize, and it's commendable. Even though the fertilizers, the way they are being distributed is the same way Carrier is hiring its people to selected areas. That's the truth. Yeah, that's the truth. The same session of paper number 10 all over again.
The important areas.
Perceived to be important.
Oh, you are saying they are not important. They are perceived to be important
because of the government of the day. Yeah. So, and that one I agree on the maize issue. But we have to look at this issue holistically. Yeah. I mean, if somebody, and we don't give President Uhuru enough credit, as much as his public finance management was a bit poor, I have to say that, but he was actually in touch with the common mananchi. He knew what they were going through. That's why he was able to subsidize and whatever. Because those are, even right now they are saying we'll remove subsidies, but you realize food is still subsidized. Some of these things they are still subsidizing, they just change the name of subsidy.
You see,
but the point I'm trying to make is, when we are looking at the micro policies, overall, the people are actually having it harder with this so-called subsidizing and the production, all these nice words that we're trying to say. The cost of living is high. Life is actually harder than it was. Our debt is increasing. Because those are the bottom line. At the end of the day, the debt is increasing. We recently took, sorry to take this tangent, we recently took another debt here that we used to pay the other debt, and now this one has an interest of almost 9 point something.
You know,
so we're actually getting worse and worse.
You know, our debt is not increasing.
It is.
For example, if you compare our GDP to against our debt, you will realize in the year, for example, 2023, our GDP to debt was at around 70%. Right now is at 60%. So we are doing well as a country. Then you will realize that we also moved in a bracket where we were almost defaulting. And right now, at least we are trying to service our debts. And that is what President is trying to do. If I'm coming back to the issue of subsidies, you know, Makalonde, subsidizing consumption is not sustainable. The only sustainable way is to subsidize production. You cannot, and whatever President Uhuru was doing, you cannot sustain it. And you will realize you are using a lot of funds to subsidize production. You cannot say that right now, let us subsidize the cost of maybe buying 1 packet of unga. The best way is to subsidize on how to produce that unga. And once you subsidize that one, you know, the cost of living is like a process. It cannot come down within, let's say, within months. It is a process. And the president is taking long route. The long route is to focus on the production, not on the consumption.
You are, there's one post that you did that was very famous did a lot of rounds. Yeah. And I think it went, what did they say? The young ones, it went viral.
Yes. I trended.
You trended. So, I'm just going to, our time is almost up, so I'll give you a chance to explain what it is you are talking about and why it went viral. And then you give your final remark. Then Otty as well, you will give your final remark.
Well, it was to do with issues, the dollar, because you realize when last year, around this time last year, a pronouncement was made that we are going to do the G2G deal on oil, and dollar is going to fall from, because they took it at 120, then it had risen to around 130, and they say that it's going to fall back to 100, even 110. But the G2G didn't work. So around this year, they took another loan, another Eurobond, to pay the other Eurobond. And all of a sudden, the dollar started dropping. And now there was this idea that, it's good policies. Now the market has confidence in the dollar. But you realize that what they did was, and even the CBK later admitted that they were actually buying, trying to stabilize the market. But they were able only to do that because they had something to stabilize the market with. So, and this was a post-it. I just made
you did a very in-depth analysis.
Yeah, well, what I did was trying to explain what is happening because it didn't make sense what was happening. So what I did was postulate that maybe someone, and not to be named, was using the recently acquired dollar, because we have acquired the dollar on Monday.
In fact, I think that was the part that most people reacted.
Yeah, we acquired then somebody was using this dollar to was actually selling it cheaply into the market, because the dollar because the moment you flood the market with the dollar,
of course the price will come down.
Drop. But because CBK does its accounting almost daily, they have to buy it back in the evening. Yeah.
So you put it out in the morning, and that is done in Italy by some of the businessmen. I know that
they also do it.
Yeah.
You flood the market in the morning, the prices go down.
Yeah, then buy it back.
Because by the time you are flooding it, let's say people are buying it around 60 in the morning, because it was around 160. In the evening, it'll drop to around 150 or something. You buy it back, making profit, because now you are spending less Kenyan money to buy these. Then they did this for like 3 days. Then all of a sudden after that, they were able to make enough cash. They paid whatever they were supposed to use that money, whatever remained. And this is why you realize even our dollar, our exchange rate hasn't stabilized. it was 140.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was 139. It's still.
It has stabilized.
Yeah, it's still so. We have to give it. And the reason why I'm saying it hasn't stabilized and somebody is playing monkey business with CBK instruments is because when the shilling strengthen, it's supposed to be felt everywhere
across board.
The NSC is supposed to, because NSC is
To record,
it's supposed to feel it. You see, but if you see NSC, all these they are dropping points. You see, you find that.
In fact, the first place that should feel is Nairobi Securities Exchange.
If there's a US investor who was actually pulling out of Safaricom, because why? Because for the last almost a year, Safaricom hasn't paid the dividends. They are declared they can't pay it because they don't have the dollars to pay it. So how is the Kenyan shilling strengthening against the dollar?
Yet,
While the foreign investors are not being paid, they're actually pulling out, and the NSC is suffering. So up to now, I'm not saying they did it for only a week. Up to now, there's somebody still paying monkey business with the dollar. And the problem with that is it's a risk that it may pay off, but if it doesn't,
it's a gamble.
It will become, because even Mugabe thought he was so smart with his PhDs that he could play with the dollar around. He did it for like a year or two. What happened to the
Ilimuramba.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your final remark before we go to Otty.
Mine is okay. You have touched on a lot of issues.
Yes.
And first, I need to thank you for this opportunity. And I hope it's a beginning of more engagement. But what I can say is to all Kenyans is we do not need to, and I'm sorry, Otty, but we don't need to buy everything the government is selling. That Nadco, hey, it's good. Oh, they are doing this, it's good. It's good.
Question.
Because what is happening right now, if we are not very careful, if you look at the state of the, because we are doing the state of the nation, if we look at it's actually suffering. The so-called hustler who thought that salvation has come has realized that actually it hasn't. They still have a long way to go, and that's why they are taking all this alcohol, they are doing all this. So the state of the nation, if I was to grade it, I'll say it a C minus, a very strong C minus.
Hata hatuwezi ingia university.
No, yes, hii ni technical.
Hii tunaenda TVET.
Hii ni TVET. Yeah, but I think on issues of production, I'll give credit to the government. But all other areas and the issue of women in ambassador position, I'll give credit for that. But if you look at the whole picture, the whole the where the country is, I think we need to refocus back. This was supposed to be a bottoms up. It was supposed to be about the bottom.
It was called better.
It was bottom out transformation agenda.
Economic transformation agenda.
Can they go back to the bottom? Yeah, because everything else, this ambassador, everything we're giving them credit is at the top here. Yeah, can they go back to the bottom and realize that these people who put their faith in them, they really need to be served. And we don't need this justification why or what. Kindly help these people. They are suffering. Up to now, there are a lot of kids who haven't even joined Form 1 because there's no fee. There's also confusion about the whole CBC, where is, it's becoming an adult for. So I think there's a lot of issues currently happening in the country. And we are hoping that if they focus on the bottom, like they said, hopefully in a year or two, it's been 18 months, nothing. So maybe in a year or two, things will change. Okay. But we'll see.
Otty, you had a comment you wanted to make, and then you can make your final contribution.
Yes. On the issue of dollar, I can say at least right now, we are trying to see dollar, at least our Kenya shilling against dollar is stabilizing. Something which is really good, especially to people who import, because we are at a situation where for people who are importing, they were really experiencing hard times, especially sana. Now, what the government did to ensure our dollar go down. For example, me, I do trading. At one point, you are trading.
Ile trading ya ukweli ama ile hawa majama wetu wa online.
Ya ukweli. You are trading at 160.
Yeah.
Right now, the dollar is at 139. So we have to comment that. As I finish, thank you for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward for further engagement. And I must say our government is really doing well. And people must give us time because President Ruto decided to follow a long route and to make a hard decision, which most Kenyans were not ready to make. Because we don't want to do shortcuts. That is why you see the president is busy focusing on the production. The president is busy focusing on the housing project because the president is trying to come up with the projects which are sustainable, and the projects which will provide sustainable solutions, not just shortcuts of here and there. One, I must say, in the education sector, we are doing well. There was a lot of embezzlement of funds within our schools, but the current system is really, and I hope it will work so well. I must also commend our president on the commitment to support women in leadership. I must also support and commend our president on the fight against illicit brew. On the hard stand that they are really taking to ensure that they limit access of backstreet alcohol. Thank you very much.
All right. And you have heard from our guests today that is Otty William and Charles Makolonde. Otty is a political strategist, but he has also enlightened us that he's an economist. Makolonde is a public policy analyst. And thank you guys for honoring our invite. Thank you for the conversation. It has been great. And I love seeing young people who are doing great things out there. And young people who are putting themselves also out there to not only get something for yourselves, but to also take the time to inform the public. And even just us, to make us know and let us know of what is happening in the country and even world over. So thank you very much for tuning in today. I have been your host, Chepkoech Towett. We have enjoyed the session. And see you tomorrow, same time, same place. But kesho tunaongea maneno ya siasa Wednesday. So kindly come prepared and subscribe to our socials. That is our YouTube and Facebook, both New Day TV. The hashtag is the Tackle Show. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, follow us, challenge us there, send your questions through there. We really appreciate your engagement. And Ramadan Kareem, Al-Muslimin, and Swaum Makbul. Thank you, guys.